Everybody, it is January 13th, the meeting of the RDAP, the first meeting of the year of the RDAP. I hope it's everything you dreamed. We have the agenda in the chat, so you can feel free to follow along with it. And it looks like we have a pretty healthy agenda for tonight, so let's go ahead and get started. First, seeing what is in the chat for tonight, does anybody have edits, additions, anything else that we'd like to change about tonight's agenda?
Nothing here.
Okay. If nobody else has anything, then let's move to the next item we have, which is the introduction of our new members. I'm really excited. I think I can speak for the group when I say we're all really excited. We have filled our community seats, and so it is my pleasure and privilege to introduce the 4 newest members of the panel. I guess we could just go through the list and ask each of you just to say hello, let us know who you are, what's your affiliation, and I don't know, what's a song you heard today or yesterday? And I'll start with Maggie, who is right next to me in the squares.
Hi, I'm Maggie Ganguly. I am the executive director for the Rutland County Restorative Justice Center. I use she, her pronouns. And I haven't really listened to a lot of music in the last few days because I've been writing grants. But I enjoy music a lot. I just can't write and listen at the same time. So I'm gonna have to skip that one the last few days. I guess actually I've been listening to a lot of Chapel Roan in the car. So we'll vibe there. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Maggie. Next up, I have Flor.
Hi, everybody. My name is Floria Smith, and I use she, pronouns. I am a citizen. I live in East Montpelier. I am here. I'm an immigrant from Guatemala, and I am also part of the Vermont School Boards Association and part of the National School Boards Association. And I've been a school board member and a public servant for over 15 years. I'm very excited to be here. Song, and I am a mom of 2, and I'm so excited to see your little one, even if it's just a footsie there, Susanna. I also was in the Building Bright Futures. Music, I listen to a lot of music when I'm drawing, so I just recently been listening to a lot of Mercedes Sosa and Gracias a la Vida, which is Thanks to Life.
Excellent, thank you, Flor. Mia.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mia Schultz. I use she, her pronouns. I'm here. I don't know which hat I'm representing. It's always blurry sometimes, but I think mostly Rutland area NAACP. I'm also a commissioner for the Vermont Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Music. Right now, I've been filling my spirit with gospel music because that's the only way to get through these times, at least for me. So that's what I've been doing.
Thanks, Mia. And of course, Karen.
Okay, so hi, everybody. I'm Karen Bastine. I use she, her pronouns. I actually was in this group for a hot minute when it was first started in 2018. So good to see some of the usual suspects. I think it's just you, Derek, though. So hi. So I am here representing the Council for Equitable Youth Justice and honored to be a part of this group. And my niece will be performing in Romeo and Juliet as a ballet. So I felt like I should start listening to that. So the music was familiar to me. So I've been trying to listen to a little classical music and it's been kind of fun. So that's my music. Good question.
All right. Members, please join me in welcoming our newest members. And with your permission, I'd actually like to extend this party just a little bit longer and ask our existing members to introduce themselves as well, so that we know who we all are. So I am going to go back around and start again with Todd.
Thanks, Susanna. Todd Delos, he, him pronouns. I am the designee of the Attorney General and have been on the panel just over a year. I think that's all you want from me. Do you want me to pass the baton?
Sure.
All right, Lisa.
Good evening, Lisa Ryan, she, her pronouns. I'm the Community Inclusion Director for the Vermont Criminal Justice Council, which oversees the Vermont Police Academy. And happy to have new members. It's nice to see you and thank you for being here. I will pass to Derek.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome, new members. That's really exciting. And Karen, great to see you again. I definitely think Rebecca Turner has me beat in terms of seniority on RDAP. And probably
Sorry, Rebecca.
a couple others. I can't claim that mantle, but I'm the designee from the Department of Corrections representing Interim Commissioner John Murad to the RDAP. And I'm going to take the liberty to answer Susanna's great question because I recently did a car swap thing with my folks and ended up with a vehicle that has Sirius XM radio in it. Never had that before. And I get to listen to like first wave, like 80s alternative so much. And I just spent like 5 hours driving back from Long Island, New York to Vermont on Sunday and just like deep in that alternative 80s zone. So happy there. So with that, I will pass off to Tyler.
Thank you, Derek. My name is Tyler Allen. I am with the Family Services Division. I am the Commissioner Designated Appointee from DCF, Department for Children and Families. I have been around here for a few years, maybe about 3 years now, maybe a little more. And I would say, actually, no, I was around since I started, so almost 5 years now, going back to the end of 2020. I would say on the music, I am kind of a singer-songwriter kind of guy. So you can catch me listening to that sort of stuff, Josh Ritter, things along those lines. So I will hand it over to, Miss Sheila Linton.
Well, hello. Thanks for that introduction, Tyler. Sheila Linton, she, her pronouns, panel member. Like, just to say, don't leave me out. I've been here since the creation of this panel. Hello. I've been here both suffering and creating great stuff. And I'm also the co-founder and executive director of the Root Social Justice Center and many other things, and coming into this space with representation and the music. I just had my birthday this past weekend, and so I listened to a lot of music. But something we were jamming out to, yeah, I love jamming out to tribal music and just really getting a vibe and getting in the mood. So I've been listening to lots of different things, and congratulations to everybody who's a new panel member. Good luck. I wish you the best. You can come to me with the tea, and or if you want the tea, and I'm happy that you all are here. Thank you for being here, and I will pass it to Rebecca.
Hi, everyone. Rebecca Turner. Yeah, also from Sheila and I from the inception. I don't even know what year it was that it happened. Someone said 2018. I will take that. I don't know. I am the Defender General's designee. The Defender General, the Office of the Defender General is the public defense system for the state of Vermont. And I'm the the head of the appellate division within the Defender General's office. And I know, like Karen, I'm great to see you on this. And Floor, we have a wild connection where Floor took my roosters as essentially internally displaced in Montpelier, rehomed them. And I'm eternally grateful for taking those beautiful roosters. And welcome the other two, Mia and Maggie. Looking forward to meeting with you. Oh, my music. I just lifted the needle on a Japanese breakfast. If you haven't heard her rocking out, I recommend her highly. She's also of H Mart, Pride and H Mart fame author.
All right, who have we not heard from?
Oh,
Dan?
sorry. Dan.
Hello, I'm Dan Bennett. I'm a sergeant with the Vermont State Police, and I'm the co-director of our Fair and Partial Policing Unit. I think I've been here for almost 4 years now. Music, I listen to everything from this morning was Wu-Tang Clan and death metal. So everything under the sun.
Thanks, Dan. I think that's it for members. Am I right? Okay, and then we have a few guests. I'm going to take the liberty of forwarding to Laura Carter from our office, whom you all know, and also Jeffrey Barushimana, who is also from our office. His first day was 8 hours ago. So please welcome Jeffrey, our new policy and research analyst. Jeffrey, do you want to say hi?
Yes, thank you. Nice to meet all of you guys. And I know a few of you guys, Sheila and Mia, through other connections. So it's nice to see you guys here as well.
Laura?
Hi, everybody. I'm Laura Carter. I use she, her pronouns. You know me. I'm an analyst in the Division of Racial Justice Statistics. You'll hear me chat a little bit later about some of the criminal legal bills that we're seeing so far this session. So thank you.
We also have Mr. Smith, Felicia, and Kim McManus on the line. No pressure to any of you. If you would like to introduce yourselves, please feel free to, or if you just care to observe, then don't feel obligated.
I am Mr. Smith, first name Bobby. I am a new homeowner here in Vermont, coming from New York. I learned about this panel from Reverend Mark Hughes. I'm just looking to, to share my wealth of knowledge and to be a productive citizen in the community of Vermont. I work with people with special needs, mental health, addiction, mental health. That's my degrees in psychology. And just, I've always been a huge supporter of social justice and things of that nature. The music I've been listening to lately is a lot of gospel. Been dealing with some things. So just been trying to figure things out as well as to continue to help others.
Thanks for being here. Anybody else on the line who would like to say hello before we move on? All right. So the next thing is we have a couple of housekeeping items. Namely, we have to review some meeting minutes from our November meeting and our December meeting. You should have those in your emails. Specifically, I'm seeing December minutes in an email from Todd from Thursday. Maximize Thursday the 8th.
And I neglected to send the November minutes, but Sheila's got her hands up.
Sheila, go for it.
So I was just going to ask about the November. I really like the screen sharing when we go to approve this. I think that is great. So thank you for that. Another tool that helps other people who might be neurodiverse or like to look at things. So great. And I love that if you move it up and down for people too who are not familiar with it. That's awesome. And I just wanted to say that what was it you, Todd, that did the minutes, but whoever did the minutes, I loved how Todd was just interim chair, but I don't even know if it named you once.
Yeah. So it's a great question because you'll see in the November minutes that I did, it just says Todd.
Yeah. So just as a reminder, whoever did that like I wouldn't know who the interim. I'd have to go back. Who was the interim? So we should be just saying Todd because everybody else was just their names. And I don't know. I was just curious behind if there was a reasoning behind interim chair using a title, if there was a reasoning behind it, just as an understanding for minutes or for whatever else as we proceed this year and how we do business, or if it was just like it just happened to be that way.
Totally fair question. I appreciate raising it because I had a little discomfort with it. So someone in our office has taken on the task of watching the ORCA recording of this meeting and then doing the minutes. And the sample minutes that I had given her referred to Eitan as chair throughout. And I think it was just carrying that convention forward. I'm happy to change them whatever the panel wants. I certainly don't have any need for this title. The other thing I'll say, just while I got the floor, is I have the November minutes. I think folks may recall ORCA had some technical difficulties for our November meeting, and so there was no recording, and so we weren't able to have somebody watch it later and create the minutes. So I was taking kind of very rough hand notes, and I have typed those up. But because I didn't send them to the panel, Susanna, I think I would suggest that I will send those to the panel following this meeting. We can look at them in the next. They're posted, so we're sort of meeting our requirements there, but they're still in a draft form until the panel reviews them.
That sounds good to me. Is everyone else okay with that? I'm seeing some nods and thumbs ups. Okay, great.
So are there any, other than, I'm happy, I'm going to take Sheila's note as an edit, and we'll shift the minutes accordingly in terms of putting my name in. And are there any other edits people would like? I'm happy to, let me scroll through because I think that was a great suggestion too, Sheila.
And just to be clear, I'm not like pressed on you got to go through and edit each one, but just put at the top that it's you, Todd, who's the interim chair, and then moving forward, or top at the narrative of the actual minutes, not just.
I'm just going to do a find and replace.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's going to take 1
cool.
second to just
Cool.
do that.
Since you fancy like that, you go ahead do that. Like.
So I'll stop at any time. I don't want to, just in the interest of getting to the substantive work, I think folks have had these for a week or so. So if there are any edits, amendments, speak now. Otherwise, I think, Susanna, we can probably approve them.
So I will move to approve the December, can somebody give me the date again?
9th.
December 9th, 2025 RDAP minutes, excuse me. With the edits of adding Todd and his name either to the position or replacing that with that friendly amendment.
Seconded.
Great. Moved by Sheila, seconded by Derek. Any discussion? No, love it. All right. All in favor, please say aye or otherwise signify.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay or otherwise signify. Any abstentions?
I think I need to
Well,
abstain because I
yeah.
wasn't at the meeting. Is that correct?
I've heard multiple interpretations of Robert's rules. We'll follow your judgment on what you prefer to do.
I'll just abstain then.
Okay. So I'm noting abstentions from Mia, Flor, and Lisa. And Karen. All right. It looks like minutes are approved. I'm not going to do math, but that felt like a majority, so. All right. We are up to the section of our agenda where we get an update from their Racial Justice Statistics Advisory Council. I'm noting that we don't have anybody present from the council, but we do have 2 people from ORE who are present who could give us a tiny update on what the council is working on. I will do that quickly, and Laura, you tell me if I missed anything. So the council is currently finalizing its annual report, which is due to the legislature on Thursday. And in it, they will be discussing their observations, assessment of the division's work, some policy recommendations that are related to and based on past RDAP recommendations that have been made. So they're going to be looking at data points that were of particular interest to this group in past reports and supporting and uplifting those as things that the legislature should be looking at and focused on. The council meets, I believe it's the first Friday of every month, so they've got another meeting coming up in just under a month. And I think that's pretty much it, right, Laura?
Yes, and I just put in the chat, I believe the recommendations from the RDAP are specifically the ones from the Act 148 report, and I can't remember if that's 2021 or 2022. They're also, I believe, planning to endorse H382, which is a criminal justice data bill as well.
Any questions on that piece? Okay. A sub item on this topic is an update on the gap analysis, which is, I suppose, more an ORE update. And we have the person who's heading up that project. So Laura, do you want to give us a really quick update on the gap analysis project? And please, when you do that, keep in mind that we have some people who are hearing about it for the first time today. So go easy on us, laypersons.
I will do my best to make this really short. So the division was mandated by the legislature in our establishing Act 142 of 2022 to do a justice technology asset inventory and gap analysis of the systems in the criminal legal system across Vermont. So myself and a few other information professionals from across the state have created a project team to conduct this gap analysis and start the inventory of the technology assets. So basically, we've met with all of our stakeholders. We've met with 10 different state agencies. I think actually the only one that we haven't met with is the judiciary. And I'll just say, stay tuned for our annual report. Because it is primarily about this gap analysis project, and it has the beginnings of the inventory in it that we will publish an addendum to once we're able to meet with the judiciary. So we're just starting, we're just wrapping up this first initial phase of it, and then hopefully the next phase will be working with these same groups to identify MOUs and other sharing agreements and data agreements. And then one of the things that we're looking for clarity on, that the other component of the inventory is the legislature wants a data dictionary, but they have not defined what that means. So again, stay tuned and read our annual report because it has a lot of information in there.
Any questions on that piece? Great, thank you, Laura. All right, it is time for us to talk about our own biennial report. Oh, look at us, it's report writing season. Todd, would you like to lead us through this part of the discussion?
I'm happy to. I hope folks had a chance to take a look at the updated report from, I sent it out, I think last Wednesday maybe. And I think the new panel members have had a chance at least to look at it, if not really review it. So I'm gonna, again, put it up on the screen. And my suggestion is that we just walk through it. I've highlighted at least one set of edits I got on it. I think folks noticed that it's trimmed down quite a bit, as we had discussed at the December meeting, kind of taking those 2024 recommendations and distilling them so that folks can take a look at the full slate within the 2024 report, but at least see what the recommendations were in this report. So unless there's an objection, I'm going to just pull the report up and we can walk through it. Can folks see this okay? Great. Cover page. I'll get back to this little asterisk here. I think because we had some movement between really drafting and kind of giving preliminary approval to the report, and now there's a footnote or an end note at the very end noting the 4 new members of the panel, and the fact, I was going to bring this up at the end, that Dale Manning has also stepped off the panel. And so wanted to just note that in the report and appreciate his work on the board, the panel as well. We'll get to that. So first page is just who we are. There's an introduction. Again, this is an opportunity for folks to say, hey, you missed a comma here, or I don't like the way that was phrased, or I stridently disagree with something else in here. I'm gonna keep rolling. So again, mostly just laying out how the report is structured. We talked about this over the last couple months. Appreciating the implemented recommendations. The two that we highlight are the creation of the DRJS, which we continue to appreciate and enjoy in these meetings. And then the passage of, well, within H2, Act 4, the increase, upping the age of juvenile court jurisdiction from 10 to 12. Comments, questions, corrections on that? So one of the more significant edits, and this the highlighted section here, I made some other copy edits that I didn't highlight, but I wanted to just flag that in conversation with a couple different folks, there was a sense that as opposed to suggesting there was unanimity, and I think there was unanimity on one or two of the recommendations from 24, that we were much clearer that it wasn't unanimous, and I sort of called out the detailed accounting, because there is a very detailed accounting in the 2024 report for those of you who are here for it. There's a set of tables, but just adding that we still find these to be areas of concern, though we weren't unanimous in making those recommendations 2 years ago. So I just want to pause there and see if there are concerns about adding that language, or any other response to that. Floor.
Just a quick question, would that make the report less strong for what there's, I don't know, I'm not, I read some minutes, but I don't know the conversations that had happened, but wouldn't it make it stronger if we could all agree? Because I think what you're saying is that, you know, there were still areas of concern for everybody. So what is couldn't we all stand behind it? Even just, and that also brings back the question of rubber rules. Once, you know, one for all, like how can we operate in a way that would move the work forward, even if there's a little. So I don't mean to move us away of this conversation, but I just wanted to ask that, because in some ways it would make the report less strong and create some little holes for it to not move forward.
Absolutely, and I think you flagged something that I think we all support, working on reaching consensus across the board. I think the challenge is we can't go back to 2024 and reach consensus. And so I'm happy to wordsmith it to make it clear that we're really talking about where the panel was in 2024. I haven't heard any objections to us presenting these again. The objections were, or the concerns were, really about presenting them as unanimous when there were a lot of differing opinions on it. And so really wanting to flag the differing opinions and make it available so folks could look at the report itself and see from 2024 who voted how or what their comments were. Does that make sense, Flor?
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Rebecca.
Todd, just for clarification, this highlighted yellow is different from what I see in my draft that I printed out. I don't know if mine is dated 1/15/2026.
Right, that's the submission date. I sent it on the 6th, and this is an edit that occurred after that, which is why it's highlighted here, is because I want to make sure people are aware, because that is a concern that was raised.
So I do appreciate this additional language, and like Flor, who I particularly appreciate considering that she's just landing today. But what was missing from this section 2 was a direct and explicit reference that more reform proposals had been submitted to the legislature. And then it's while they're not unanimous, please see. So I'm just thinking, like, can we rephrase this last highlighted to not be so negative in terms of while not unanimous? What the point is that we have many more, right? We have submitted the select few here in 2 being the ones that we landed upon. but please note legislature that, right, and you footnote 2 for the detailed report on the votes, but that there were more. So just a tweak. It's a little bit of a tilt of
Yeah.
positivity of it, which
I-
is to say, hey, reference these for additional reform ideas, even though they may not have been unanimous.
I'm totally. I respect and appreciate reframing it. I like that a lot. I guess do you have specific language you'd suggest here? I don't love public drafting, but I feel like that might be the moment we're at, is to just try and work all the way through this and get a document that people agree with or can at least manage.
You could say the 2024 RDAP report provided how many recommendations? I don't know how many there are right off front, right out of the box. While they were not all unanimous, they can be all found here at this link. Something, right? We have narrowed our focus on the ones that received unanimous report. I don't know, something like that. I'm happy to take any other suggestions on how to amend that.
So this is now the new language. I'll go back and count. If people are comfortable with that, I'll just plug.
I'm okay with that. I had something else to say, and for some reason I lost where I can find that raise your hand button. So I can't raise my hand. It's Sheila.
Before Sheila jumps in, any comments, concerns about the edit Rebecca just offered?
I like it. Sorry, just jump in. It just the only part is that now we lost that they remain areas of concern. I really like that. Is that still there?
I think I added it. Oh.
You added it, and then right now it just went away. So.
Oh, right. I changed it
Yeah.
here.
So just, I don't think we want to lose that part.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, moving over. Sheila, what's up?
Okay, so I was trying to remember if it reflects, I don't think I saw if it reflects who voted how in this report that we're giving to them this year. Like that, so originally we reference it, but it isn't in actuality where we're like, okay, these people voted this way or whatever. And the reason why I'm asking this is I'm wondering who voted in opposition, because it's bringing up the issues that I brought up at the last RDAP meeting. Like, is it abstaining? Was it majority? I'm trying to remember like all the things, or was it actual blocks? Like, we ain't down with this. And how much of that, because when we talk about there wasn't consensus or mature, like it's like people can read into that in all sorts of ways. And I agree with Laura that we would be stronger, and that's the conversation we were having a couple months ago of how do we figure this out. And I think the concerns that I brought up at our last meeting continue that conversation around this whole voting and what are we doing. As an original panel member, for those of you a little bit of historian stuff, is like we ended up as the panel back then coming to where we needed to write a report, and rather than not writing report at all, we decided to do like I can't remember what we called a minority report or whatever, is to allow people to just say what they felt, and whoever agreed, and then that we wouldn't block what we were trying to move forward with. But I agree that is, there's some valid and there's validity in being in unity and being able to move forward and make a decision. And there's also in the way that we've been operating, even though we're technically under Robert's rules, in a way that's almost like consensus. It's like, I'm not going to block it. I might not fully agree with it. Like it might be a 4, not a whole fist or whatever, but I'm good for those of you who know what I'm talking about. And, so I'm bringing this up, and it might not be germane right now to what we're exactly talking about, but I think we need to talk about this because it's continuing to get underneath of me, and this is another area in which it feels yucky. So I'm just, yeah.
So I can respond to part of that, but I feel like it's probably a group discussion as well. I'm happy to pull up the 2024 report and show so it's a big grid system, and it's you've got kind of across the board, it's yeses, it's nos, it's blank spots, it's yes and here's why, it's no and here's why. It's a very helpful document on a sort of high level. My thought on the way we were doing this report is sort of my philosophy on report writing. So just to be clear about the bias there, is to keep it shorter because then it's more likely to be read. And then give people who want to dig in the information that they may need to dig in deeper. And so that was the thought around, let's focus on these two data point recommendations, and then I think it's the 3 community safety recommendations, and then let's give readers links and the ability to go find more information. So that's really just that first part, Sheila. I think you're absolutely right. We have to talk about sort of how we are coming to votes, how we are able to reach as much consensus and put forward the strongest recommendations we can. And I think those are stronger when we're united in them. But I also know that we want to be careful about allowing a sort of no vote to water something down in the hopes of getting consensus. So it's all part of kind of decisional process. I know I'm rambling, so I don't think I really answered much of that. And I'm happy to add more language here. I think with the caveat that my goal has been to keep it fairly short.
I mean, I like the shortness considering the many iterations and the hard work that's gone into this. And I'm just going to process what you said for now. So, and Rebecca, I wanted to say thank you for your comments.
Todd, Susanna, could I respond or join in this?
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's okay. I recommend that we actually shelve Sheila's request until we go through the whole thing. I only say that because as you referenced to, especially for the new members, that there was this Excel spreadsheet that was collected in 2024 as to every panel member's respective positions. It may become actually very much relevant as to the no's and where we got the abstentions and the no's in 2024, if they mirror similarly when we get to proposal for the third section and what we're doing there. Because then I do think while shortness is a virtue, it does become absolutely relevant where we're starting to see a pattern among panel members as to who is supporting the reformer proposals and where we're seeing, if there's a pattern, again, transparency, people can make conclusions as to at least 2 years in a row where we're getting the no's or abstentions. And so I just would recommend, let's not make a decision yet, but just if we can come back and see if it is indeed relevant to get more detail as to who voted what, when in 2024 after you go through the rest of it.
Sheila seems okay with that. Karen.
I may have the same question as Fleur. I'm not sure. But I guess I'm curious, Rebecca, what you just said is really helpful for understanding just how are we moving the work forward, and where are the places in the system that we need to be being thoughtful and addressing those concerns. So I'm getting that. But I guess I've just never been a part of something like this before, where either something passes or it doesn't. And so I guess I'm just curious. I think I'm coming back to what Flora said. It's so much stronger to say, this is what the group recommended, and that we ourselves can use that more granular information to better understand our own positions and where are the things that we need to push on and change. And I don't know. I don't think I'm helping, but it's a little bit confusing. I will just say I've never seen a report like that. So.
Maggie. Go ahead, Maggie.
I guess I'm just curious. So I recognize that in 2024 there was differing opinions. However, if it is currently the pleasure of the current board to move this forward unanimously, if we want to move forward, why are we looking backwards? Like if we are deciding as a body, this is what we agree on as the current body. Can we agree on it as the current body? And like, why do we need to bring up people? Because like, there's always going to be people who disagree and like things that happen. And that was that body. And now you have so many new members, so many new faces, new things, and you're asking us to vote on something. But then we're like talking about, I don't want to call it semantics necessarily, but we're talking about what was before when there's all new people here.
It's absolutely a fair point, and I think largely the conversation leading up to the December meeting was a broad agreement to forward the 2024 recommendations, and that I think that is a unanimous decision. The issue is that the majority of the panel are representatives of offices, and those offices, and I think it may be a little helpful. I'm just going to pull up what the spreadsheet we're talking about looks like, so folks can kind of get a sense of how the votes. So basically, you've got a section of the report called Juvenile Justice, and then we've got a number of proposals, and I'll just go through it slowly here. So we've got these 5 questions, and then we've got how each person did or did not respond to each question, and whether they did or did not support it. So as you can see in the juvenile justice section, it was largely affirmative and supported. And we'll move on to the community recommendations. Sorry, there are a number of abstentions here, and 1 no vote from the state's attorneys. And then if we move on to the community safety, there's even more information here from members of the panel with a number of no votes and abstentions. So, you know, part of it, Maggie, is it's a very fair question, because we as a panel did not undertake this exercise when we said we'd look at the 2024 report and we'd forward those recommendations on. And then I think as folks sort of engaged a little bit more, there was a discomfort with saying we unanimously support forwarding the recommendations on. And so what I was trying to do, I'll stop sharing now because I think folks have a sense of what that grid looks like, and you can certainly pull up the 2024 report. What I was trying to do with the language, and part of the reason it's helpful to have this discussion and a little bit more drafting, is just sort of capture both. Sorry, that weird link I just put in is the 2024 report, if folks just want to pull it up. So again, there's not I think this has been a little bit of a drafting challenge. I personally am comfortable saying that the panel submits the recommendations, but I also want to try and capture those other concerns that were raised, and flag the fact that more, you know, again, in certain recommendations there was pretty far from consensus in 2020. Sheila?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have this thing in my work where we have conflicts, we come up with creative solutions. So this sounds like a conflict or that we need a creative solution for. What I think I hear Maggie saying, which I don't know if we're quite getting here, is that what I'm hearing actually is, whether it's brand new members or whether it's the members who were here just before today, we, this current body, feel X, Y, and Z. And we don't necessarily need to reflect on what the A, B, and C group decided, because we could just literally be like, those are our own. We liked what they said, and we, as this body, could say the same thing. So I think and correct me, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Maggie, but I think, like, after you actually really said that, I'm thinking actually that there is, we understand the reflection. I think, Lisa, you were going into this too. It might be TMI, right? Like, we don't necessarily have to TMI about the past like that. When there is reference, we can have that reference, whatever. But if the current board is recommending these things, regardless of whether they were from the, regardless of whether we recommended them before, or regardless of what the positions were of the other body of this group was, that is kind of a moot point. And so I agree with Flora and Maggie, and potentially of actually having that as historic archive, open, public, whatever, but not necessarily actually having to be like anybody, unless that's the current factor of it, to represent it that way. I don't think there's a need. I agree with that. And I would love people to lean into that. But that's how I understood. So Maggie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's really what you were trying to get at, is like, yeah, like it kind of doesn't make sense if you really think about it like that.
Well, that's pretty much exactly what I was trying to say, is that, like, I see, I guess, what they did, so like we can appreciate and say many of these recommendations were not, taken up, and so the current body votes in this way, and we could make the same exact spreadsheet, right? To put these forth, and then if there is still massive disagreement or abstention or what have you, then then that's something to note. But like, I don't know if that's even allowed, but like basically it's like, we appreciate these things and we're bringing them forward because they're still important, and that's like, I guess all I was saying. So I appreciate the yes, you understood me exactly. Yeah.
Rebecca.
So I want to share my perspective about making sure that there are parts of the historical vote that are not lost with changing members. Let me make it more clear, and it's reflected in the most recent December minutes that we all just voted on. The panel members who were present at the December meeting, it was reflecting in whether or not the panel members representing government bodies, and I'm not including the Defender General's office in that, but every other panel member representing government body, I think, although I might be wrong as to one or two, but it seemed like the majority, revealed that they did not feel like they could vote yes on any reform proposal that was being submitted to the RDAP for the current year. And interestingly enough, from a historical perspective, from my panel members' experience, it is not a one-off. It was also in 2024, and that's what that Excel spreadsheet, if you look at it, shows that there were numerous proposals provided, and yet panel members were not unanimous, and it wasn't just one-offs. It broke down pretty consistently among certain government panel members who felt like, and they went on the record saying why they could not vote yes. And that is to Sheila's point earlier made at this meeting as to wanting to explore that further. And so some of this is getting at that, where I worry that there is an entrenchment happening. And if we focus on unanimity, we inherently water down the type of reform proposals that get forward to the legislature, where if we only put forward reform proposals that get the unanimous panel member votes, where we have a panel conceived of a mixed group, not just of community members, the Defender General's office, and government organizations that have historically shown that they cannot, for whatever reasons they share, but they do share them to their credit on the record, why they can't vote yes. And so that's what I don't want to lose, although I'm excited to have the new people here at this panel. And so that's the full background to my context of my ask.
Thanks, Rebecca. Susanna.
Thank you. I wanted to add one more piece that I think is accurate. This is my recollection of how we, an additional piece of how we arrived here, which was that we were leading up to the time to draft our report. And I think that the group was concerned that it wouldn't have the kind of runway that we needed to be effective at reviewing all of this in detail to see if people's opinions had changed or to see if the landscape had changed and to reassess. And so to look at the current panel as constituted now and say, do we want to revisit this or come up with new stuff? I thought I remembered that the group opted to say, you know what, the good ideas we had before, they're still good ideas, and we're going to lift them up because those were agreements we already made, instead of trying to open it up again without having a meaningful amount of time to really dive deep into that research. That's how I recall us getting to this point. And then, I think the other really uncomfortable but very obvious thing to say here is that the organizations who are appointing people to this panel are still the same organizations. And we've not received any indication that their stances have changed on these topics. And I'm aware that we have colleagues in our midst who are really struggling with wanting to be full substantive participants. And without speaking for people, from my perspective, may be feeling silenced. And so I think that struggle is not going away. And I don't know what kind of meaningful difference, I don't know how much daylight we can arrive at between our old recommendations and any new ones in the next 48 hours. And I don't say that to be futilistic, but I just say it as a way of background of why we're here, not prescriptive about whether we should be here.
Thanks, Susanna. Lisa.
Thanks, Todd. I just I also want to be mindful of time. We have an hour left and we're not through this report at all yet. And a clarification question. Are we going to be voting on the recommendations independently or the report as a whole? Because that is going to very much depend on how I vote because I am representing a larger agency. So that would be helpful to know because it seems like we're going a little bit back and forth between what was done in 2024. But I also agree that I think we need to move on and focus on not so much of the 2024 report. I understand those recommendations, some of them are still relevant, but that's it.
Thanks, Lisa. Tyler, are you on the same thread or should I respond to Lisa on that?
I am on the same thread, actually, and my suggestion was going to be fairly similar to it. And I'm having a thought that might be substantive and helpful. I was holding it back because I didn't want to derail us and slow us down, but I think we've kind of are unpacking it right now. And so I think I remember in the 2024 conversations, one of the things that was reflected on is if we were talking about the release of a report en masse, on whole, as reflective of the work and recommendations of this group, of what we talked about, that there was support kind of unanimously of the group that was an accurate reflection of work being done. And I think truthfully that could be said now, that we could all say like, this is what we've talked about, this is what's out here, how this report is. We might find unanimity in that, putting it out there as a reflection of work. If we parse things out into individual parts of the report or individual recommendations that have policy implications, your quote unquote government players in the room are going to have the challenge that none of our commissioners put forth a policy recommendation by themselves. All of those policy recommendations that come out of departments are brought together and they're vetted across multiple departments, multiple 8 parts of the executive branch, and kind of move up, and those policy recommendations go out as a bunch. So if we're to look at any individual thing that might have a policy implication, representatives of offices or of departments are going to be in a position where they're going to have to abstain because it's a months-long process to get through that, like months to year-long process to get through that. And so that changes the tone of it. So I think what we decide we want to vote on impacts whether or not we can get that unanimity that the group is seeking.
So I do think we've got kind of two parallel concerns going on. And I want to try and figure out if and how to thread that needle. When we conceived of the report and the discussion around the report from last spring going forward, originally was just, I believe Eitan's plan and the one we discussed was a cover letter that just said, here's the 2024 report. You really need to work on this. And so that is the genesis of this version, was one, highlight some areas where we've been successful in our advocacy and where the legislature moved forward with what we were recommending. Two was to say, here's the 2024 report, look at it again. That's the goal here, was to use the phrase highlight the following recommendations. It sounds as though, but just for a little bit of clarity for the folks who are new to the panel, and also inviting correction and any gentle editorializing around this that folks, but doesn't have to be gentle, that folks want to provide. The thought was, we haven't really talked about those 2024 recommendations as a panel this year. We haven't delved back into them. So Maggie, kind of to your point about, like, we absolutely, as this panel on this day, can make our own decisions and recommendations and put them forward. The issue is that RDAP in the 2025 calendar year did not delve into these beyond looking at the 2024 report and suggesting that we would forward those on. So I think there's also a challenge in how, whether we went policy by policy. I personally would not be comfortable doing that as a rote vote at this moment, because we actually haven't had the same level of presentation and engagement with those topics that I think the panel did in 2023. What we did do is say, hey, let's look at the 2024 report, let's discuss the 2024 report, and let's forward the recommendations on. And so what I'm trying to capture in this language, and we may want to take a different route, though I note Susanna's germane point about having 48 hours to do so. That was the goal, is just to essentially say, hey gang, here's the 2024 report. These are the important recommendations. It felt too little to say, here's the 2024 report, click on this link and figure it out. And that's why there's sort of a listing of the central recommendations. I'm happy with I'll do whatever the panel sort of thinks, but at the end of the day, we do have to vote on the report and approve it. And that is sort of what's on the agenda. If we want to open it back up and look at those recommendations, I fear we're going to need to wait longer term and probably have a longer discussion and push our report back, which has happened in the past. I don't think that's the end of the world, but it also means we're submitting a report halfway into the session, probably well beyond the point that we would get much legislative traction, which has some detrimental effect, because we do have a recommendation in section 3 that we do want the legislature to look at and engage with. Any reaction to that? Am I way off base with sort of where I was headed? So I'm going to share my screen again. I want to capture, though, Rebecca, I don't want to lose the thread of the through line you want to raise here. And I don't quite know how to fold that in to this report, but that is not to say it shouldn't happen. Go ahead.
No, I'm not moving or suggesting that we take up those 2024 other recommendations. It was a point of transparency and the degree of transparency as to that added sentence you proposed and highlighted. And then I suggested we actually go forward with section 3 and whether or not we need, how transparent, how explicit we need to be in the transparency as to who voted what, when in 2024, whether it could be a footnote to an Excel spreadsheet. So
Gotcha.
I support your suggested moving forward with our
Okay,
agenda.
and my apologies for missing. I heard you say let's deal with it later, and I got caught up in the other okay. So I'm gonna share my screen because I don't see other hands up, and I haven't heard objections to this language, so I'm gonna leave this as it stands. And then these are essentially either direct quotes or paraphrasing of the 2 expanded data collection recommendations and the 3 community safety recommendations. And then there are footnotes on each one that are links to that portion of well, they should be links to that portion of the report. Okay, hearing nothing, I'm going to move on to section 3. So section 3 is the recommendation we want to make this year. It's about the legislative racial impact assessment process. Most of this language is tied to, well, I guess it's this last paragraph is really tied to the actual proposal that we voted on and approved last month. And I don't know, are there thoughts, concerns, edits to this? Go ahead, Rebecca.
I'm holding back my hand just to make sure I don't dominate the discussion.
You led this subcommittee, so I think it's totally appropriate for you to.
Okay, and I just want to do a point of clarification because I was comparing the draft you presented to us in December and then this draft for section 3. And I see that you omitted this final draft is shorter in section 3 than what you presented to us in December in section 3. So I just want to make sure the panel's aware of that. And what is omitted is more detail. And it used to include some of the, it looked like 4 bulleted points as to what the tool should actually include. So basically more detail, and it looked to me as copying 4 bullets from our actual subcommittee's submission. So I just wondered what the well, in any event, could you explain like what the difference is and why you chose to just cut it?
So what was in the December draft was a direct copy and paste of the proposal. And at the December meeting, we approved the proposal.
Right, that was my understanding as well. But the draft I have today for us to vote on is missing those pieces. It's short.
Right. Because we approved the proposal, it felt redundant to have both a proposal and a direct quoting of the proposal in the report.
But I don't see a reference to that proposal anywhere in this report by way of the attachment, the appendix. There's no actual language, so that the final product is less. It doesn't, unless I'm missing it, where in here does it actually provide the work that the subcommittee presented and we voted majority vote last month?
So I have not been under the understanding that that proposal was part of the report other than referencing it. I think we can certainly attach it to the report. It was forwarded to I understand based on the vote that the subcommittee would have forwarded it to the legislature per what RDAP wanted, right? So that it was taken into consideration in the drafting of the bill.
My understanding of the minutes was that we voted for that proposal, but not necessarily that we would not include it, whether it's an appendix, an attachment in the report itself.
Yeah, anyway, I don't know why we would have voted on the report substance during the December meeting when we were going to cover it here. If you look at the last sentence on the screen, that's drawn from the minutes.
Right. And so here's my suggestion. If you're or asking for edits, we make sure there's an attachment or appendix, however we want to call it, that includes that legislation the proposed legislation that we discussed last month and that we did a majority vote. And that was in fact submitted to the Representative Arsenault, so that there's some context.
So is that sentence work for you? The full proposal is attached to this report.
Do you reflect that it was voted yes by the majority elsewhere?
So the sentence before says the panel formally voted to provide this proposal to the legislature at the December 2025 meeting. The full proposal is attached to this report.
Okay. That works with me.
Thank you for flagging and encouraging that. Anybody have any concerns or reactions to including the proposal? The one thing I would say, Rebecca, is, and you're probably going to bring this up in a second, so you can tell me to wait. We don't have any of the voting transparency piece within this, and I don't know if you've got a thought on how to include that.
I'm not sure I'm the one to answer that question. It's maybe other members who, I mean, the sentence before that indicates that the panel formally voted to provide it. And the Defender General's office voted yes and supported. So I have no problem with this sentence.
Okay. So I'm going to keep moving unless people want me to stop because we're a little over time and I know Susanna wants us to stay on target. The conclusion is just a paragraph suggesting that we got more work to do, and then a paragraph just appreciating Eitan's work, which I thought was appropriate at the end of this report, sort of reflecting his last 2 years on the panel. So are there any other edits, any other concerns, any other objections? I think the only thing that is left, assuming this is approved, the only thing left is for me to add the number of recommendations from the 2024 report in here. So hearing nothing else, Susanna, I'm going to turn it back over to you for a vote or a motion, et cetera, on this.
Yeah, so I do think that it makes sense for us to decide what to do with this draft and what, if anything, we're going to be submitting on Thursday. But I also don't want to push past all of the discomfort and the ambition that we've expressed in our conversations around this. So I would like to invite the group to join me in figuring out a way that we can dispense with this. This is a task, while also moving forward with an actual vision. I mean, I think part of the reason that we're sort of rushing to make a decision here, I don't want to say rushing, but we are trying very hard to make a decision now because we have a deadline that, a due date that's been imposed on us by a body outside of this body. And that's not unique in state government, but it creates pressure. And to some extent, certainly we have to deal with that pressure, but to another extent, we've been brought together as a panel of subject matter experts and we should flex that. So maybe I would like to propose this. I think that to dispense with this task, I would be comfortable voting in favor of this submission and then turning our attention to crafting a sort of vision for how we would like to revisit all of this, refresh our stances and recommendations, and figure out once and for all, how are we going to make this group work in a way that is meaningful with the level of participation that we can expect from various members. I hope that was not just a word salad. Does anybody have reflections on that? Flor, I see you with, Tyler and then Flor.
My reflection is an appreciation for your summary, Susanna. I think that this is a well-written report. It's well crafted. It points in several directions. It has recommendations that are reflective of the work we're doing, and I feel like it's the sort of thing we can get behind. And then I like how you reframe this to moving away from this task into what the vision can be. So I'm appreciative of you, Susanna.
Thanks, Tyler. Flor?
I don't have a lot to add at the beginning. Just I like the way you reframe it, especially, we can spend some time thinking about how we operate as a board and how we have some norms and how we can, move the work forward later on. So thank you for rephrasing it like that.
Lisa, go for it.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understand what we're voting on, because at one point you said we're voting on the submission. Are we voting on the submission of the report or the report as it stands with everything that's in it?
It would be, to my understanding, it would be a vote to submit a document that directs the legislature back to our prior submission. It's not an individual endorsement of every single item that's contained therein. It's a reminder to them that we gave them a body of work and we want them to use it. Is that how other people are also understanding it?
Susanna, question, point of clarification. Are we then separately voting for this proposed report and as suggested amendments to it separately?
I don't know that I understand.
I just heard you say, do we need to separately vote on whether we want to submit the 2024 reports?
Oh,
may have misunderstood.
No, I might have just misstated. I think what I was trying to say was a submission that directs the legislature back to that report, but not necessarily a new filing of that previous report, rather just referencing it and saying, hey, remember this? Did you read it? This is actually a crochet pattern, but you know what I mean.
So then we're not voting on the report itself. Maybe I'm
on the content of it and the individual recommendations. Is that what you're asking?
Individual or not?
We're not relitigating. What I'm saying here is that we're not relitigating the 2024 report content and substance. That report was already filed with the legislature. There's no going back. Votes were taken. It was submitted. So what I believe we're doing here is sending them a document that constitutes this year's report that says we stand by what we gave you in 2024. And what we gave you is clear about saying some is consensus, some is non-consensus. But that as a body of work is what we gave you before. And we're reminding you to look at it and use it.
Right, but does that include the content of this 2026 report?
As captured in part 2.
Maybe I'm just not understanding.
I'm with Lisa. I'm very confused as what you're asking us to do, Susanna, because what you're suggesting is embedded in the proposed 2026.
Like, I thought we were just here to vote on the report that we've been working on for several weeks.
Yes, yes.
Including everything that's in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I might have just confused everybody. So what you said is what we're doing.
Voting on the drafted 2026 report that we just went over. Okay. Thank you.
Todd, maybe you could help just summarize the proposed amendments, because now the one that we got coming into this meeting has shifted a little bit. So if we're being asked to vote on this, is it the revised as proposed amendments made during this meeting, or the one we received coming in?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the two changes from the version, so they're the two substantive changes, because again, I caught some typographical stuff. I did not highlight that. the two changes we've added in this meeting are the sentences at the beginning of section 2. This report, the 2024 report, provided its 7 recommendations, including the ones listed below. While these recommendations were not all unanimously supported, they remain areas of concern and are available at the link below. So that's the 2 sentences we added there, and then a sentence at the very end of section 3 that notes that the full proposal, the legislative proposal, is attached to the report, and I will append that to the report for submission. So those are the 2 changes. So maybe we need a motion on this.
So I guess I could go out and try. I would like to make a motion that we support this 2006 RDAP report with the 2 amendments that you just referenced, Todd.
Great. And is there a second?
I can second it. I was waiting for other members that have been here for a while, but I'm happy to second it and move it.
Thank you, Flo. Discussion, further discussion.
I don't think it really matters, but Tyler had said 2006 and not 2026.
Thanks, Lisa.
I appreciate the punctiliousness of that.
All right.
So, hearing no further discussion, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, we got plenty of board members. I just wanted to make sure we had a quorum. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand or otherwise indicating. Five, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Great. I don't know, I can't see Sheila's hand, but we'll wait on that. And then all those opposed? Seeing none. Those abstaining? Lisa. All right. So I think the final vote was 10 to 0 to 1. I appreciate all the conversation. I don't know if there's anybody who wants any follow-up, or Susanna, if you're ready, or you want me to drive for a minute.
No, I'm good. Everything behind me to plug in this machine. All right. Thanks, everybody. Again, I know that it doesn't feel great to take votes on things with feeling like we still have a lot to resolve. So I am committed, and I know the rest of you are too, to getting us to a place where we are polished and concise and accurate and up to date on what we're recommending and who we are and what we mean, and say it with our chest. With that, I am going to do a little bit of rearranging of our agenda just to make sure that we're able to cover everything. So the next 3 items we had are an update on our legislative proposal from Todd, followed by a quick legislative rundown from ORE, and then a discussion about planning for this year, and then public comment. What I'd like to do is put our legislative rundown for last, so that in the event we don't have enough time, we can at least email you the materials and you can review them on your own if we don't have time to walk through it. Is that okay with everyone? Great, thank you. Todd, you're up.
So I want to be really quick, and actually, with the chair's permission, I have hopefully it's not it needs to be a topic of conversation. I completely forgot at the top of the meeting, which is telling. The quick update is there is.
Didn't you read the minutes? You are the chair.
I mean, I wrote the agenda. You'd think I would be able to hold on to it for like a second, but I really. And you even asked if there were any updates, and it didn't. So, very quickly on the legislative proposal, there is, I don't think, from where I sit, I don't think this changes our proposal at all, but I wanted to say the legislature or Rep. Arsenault has come back and noted that there's some question within Leg Council, those are the lawyers for the legislature, about whether our proposal is really a proposal for legislation or a rules change. And so we haven't had a chance to connect. I think Susanna and I I don't remember if we all talked together, it was just email chains. I think anybody's welcome into that conversation. The issue, without going too deep into it, is legislation is really about the laws that shape how the state operates. Rules are the rules under which the body, meaning the House and the Senate, operate. And so there's a question there about whether one legislature can bind the next legislature through legislation versus a rule change, which is something that the body then operates under. And so what I would just say is, or what I would offer is to get some information and also invite Rep. Arsenault to come talk a little bit, just so we can understand it. You know, we've submitted the proposal. We need to keep advocating for the change. I think it would be helpful for the panel to understand if there's a real distinction, you know, just understanding a little bit better about what the difference between those might be and where we want to lean. Again, at the end of the day, it's going to be the legislature's call. So that's the very quick update on that. Are there questions on that? Yeah, go ahead, Rebecca.
Yeah, no, Todd, thank you for that. And I actually want to urge that we do take that up seriously when we can at our next agenda, because that suggestion by Leg Council, whether or not our proposal is better fitted as a rule, a mere rule, in my opinion, versus legislation, is huge. And for us as a panel, I think that is not a technicality, but a substantive change as to what it is, right? A rule is chamber by chamber. It expires within the end of a biennium, and rules can be suspended, versus legislation that actually passes, becomes and holds the force of law. So absolutely a significant suggestion that could have a huge different effect and impact if it turned into one or the other. So thank you for providing that, and I look forward to that being added to our agenda in the future.
And I think the goal is to bring back more information for exactly that discussion so that the panel engages fully. The other thing that I forgot, the chair of Senate Judiciary reached out to see if we wanted to testify on legislation and provide an update on RDAP. And I said, he reached out to me because of my title as interim chair right now. And I said, we were having this meeting and I would come back to him. So I put that out there. There is I didn't get here are the 4 bills we want RDAP to weigh in on. It was just, do you want to come? I'm certainly happy to connect and get a little bit more detail than that, but wanted to at least note the invitation from yesterday, or maybe it was this weekend. Rebecca.
Yeah, no, I think that's wonderful for other new members here. We get that invitation every year that we submit a report. And by tradition, we have sent our chair, who's been a community member, to present the highlights of the report. And it's an important and critical interface, I think, that this RDAP has with the legislature, with the House Judiciary and Senate Judiciary. They have gone traditionally to both committees, and it reminds them that we exist and reminds them to read the report. Todd, I've been thrilled, and we've been, speaking just for myself, that you've stepped up, Susanna, stepped up to be interim chair. This sort of raises the question, because I would actually support someone from our panel to go sooner rather than later to talk about a report, assuming it gets in there quickly. And I think it should be the chair. So then that raises another question. Are we electing a chair? And when?
Yeah. I think that, yeah, go ahead, Susanna.
Oh, I was just going to say, part of what we were waiting for was to have our new members so that we could have a full panel to decide. So no pressure, new people, but you've been on the clock for an hour and a half now, so that qualifies you to vote or become chair. So I think that the group, I don't see anything that would stop us from that, but I do think that anybody who takes that seat, because it was occupied by the same person for a long time, there's a lot of institutional knowledge there. So I think that whoever takes that title would really benefit from the support of the rest of us. Little details, like where do you stand in your room when you go testify? And bigger details, like what has been the trajectory of the panel's policy recommendations over the years. So I agree. I do think this is a good opportunity and we should be represented there. Who does that? I guess will depend on whether we choose to elect a chair and so who that is and how well supported they are by the panel to go in and represent.
Could I make a suggestion? I would just say for myself, yes, an hour and a half is totally sufficient to get a full read on this group, not so much. So yeah, I think it would be awesome if we could take a vote on a chair in an expedient way, but I don't know about the other new members, but I wouldn't feel comfortable today. So I'm wondering, this is such an important opportunity for us to have, visibility in the State House. I feel like anytime we're invited to speak to the work that we should say yes. And so I actually wonder, given that in the past, it's always been a community member, I wonder whether it could be a combo platter where it's Todd and a community member who go together. I actually think that could be a nice way to represent the work. So I don't mean to disappoint you, Susanna.
It could be Susanna and a community member. I'm just saying.
I meant for not taking a vote today on the new chair. So
I saw some flashes of hands and then they went away. Does anybody else want to weigh in on this?
I support that idea. I think, yeah, having Susanna or Todd go to the legislature and not wait any, don't lose that opportunity, yeah, especially right now.
I'm weighing in, Rebecca. I forget, Todd and Suzanne, if you can remind others, the enabling language in the statute and the Attorney General's role in RDAP. Could you remind us? I'm just sensitive to the fact that the Attorney General's office is well represented in the legislature in the session, generally speaking. And yes, I understand community members, there are many new ones here today. I know that the Attorney General's office, I just don't have the enabling statute ahead in terms of what their role is in the legislature in this panel. I just caution that instinct to send Todd, not anything personally, it's about the organization you represent on behalf of the panel, that I'd rather not have it be you. And that speaks nothing to the tremendous amount of effort and energy you put towards this. So don't take it that way. It's been amazing and I'm grateful for it. But just throw that out there.
Totally understood and appreciated on all fronts, Rebecca. So to your question, the Attorney General's role, the Attorney General herself appoints 5 members to the panel. And then the Attorney General's office provides both reimbursement and administrative support for the panel. Those are kind of our 2 roles. So I'm happy to do the logistics around scheduling and getting things done. If the panel wants me to speak on it, I'm happy to do that. I think I fully and thoroughly support a community member being probably the lead on that if it needs to be me in support of that. I'm also happy if other members of the panel want to join. By which I mean replace me when I say join. It's what happens when you're tall. It's that, not that you can tell that I'm tall, but people are like, yeah. I'm hoping Sheila's like, I would love to come up to Montpelier next week. We can have you on Teams, have you on Zoom.
And today.
Susanna, what did you say? I don't know if it was just me who couldn't understand you.
I'm sorry. I said I'm willing to go if the group would like.
That would be wonderful.
I-
I'm happy
I'll
to carry
also
your coffee.
add, I will also add, this is a note from Laura, who has been watching these committees, who have really been coming in hot this session. And she noted that the invitations to testify will likely focus on the bills they're currently considering, which include S208, S209, and S178. So we will probably assume to be prepared at least on those, and then speak more broadly to whatever else they want to talk about.
Which I'll just say to Rebecca's point is a little tricky for those of us who hold dual roles, because we'll be testifying in those committees on those same bills, potentially with a different recommendation. Can I make a suggestion?
Maybe we
Chair?
can let people think about it, pending the logistical details, and when we find out more about the request, if we're able to seek clarifying details, we can put the question back out to the group via email. And if anyone's interested in joining, then we can do that. Does that sound okay for people? Okay, I'm seeing some nods and thumbs. Good. Todd, I'm hopeless on email. Are you willing to help me?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So with 25 minutes remaining, we have 45 minutes of 50 minutes of work ahead of us. So we really do try for the new members to keep ourselves within the allotted time. I think as important as planning for 2026 is, I think, Susanna, I might suggest we table that. You and I can do a little bit of behind the scenes work and maybe send some prep materials out for February so folks come in ready to roll. And maybe then I would suggest we at least spend maybe 20 minutes at a minimum on the DRGS legislation review with Laura, and then the balance of our time for public comment. I think we only have just a handful, Mr. Smith and Rep. Arsenault, and maybe Kim if she has anything she wants to say. So
I'm comfortable with that. Is everyone else?
Laura, take us away.
Thanks. Do I have sharing permissions?
I think every time it's like no.
Yeah, I don't.
I apologize. This is now I'm showing my age, Laura. This is the part where I'm like, it was easy last time and it's different this time. It's totally different. So I'm just thinking.
I betray my fellow millennials all the time, so don't worry.
I just hit host tools, but now I'm like, where are those? Participants. I don't see anywhere that allows the participants to share screen.
If you co-own the meeting, Susanna, you have the PowerPoint and I can just, but I don't want you to drive unless you want to, but that's
I'm going to make, here we go. Now you're the co-host.
Oh, look at this.
Much easier.
Okay. Can you guys
Thank you,
see
Laura.
this? Yeah, no problem. How does this look for you guys? Because it looks weird for me. Can you still see the PowerPoint?
We can see it in build mode. Now we can see it in presentation mode.
Okay.
No notes.
Cool. No notes. There are no notes. This is just going to be me talking. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to legislative session, the other half of this biennium for 2026. These are going to be just bills related to the criminal legal system. As some of you may remember, our previous policy analyst and I, we kind of did these maybe midway through session last year, and we also incorporated some upstream factors that Jeffrey and I will definitely be working on moving forward. But for now, it's just the criminal legal stuff. So these I grabbed from our last presentation and kind of where we left off at the end of session in 2025. That includes H357, H361, H379, and H382. Those, and here's a little bit of a deeper dive. None of these have been in committee, with the exception of H379. So I'm not entirely sure if they will resurface, but these are bills that were identified as of interest by the RDAP last year. So H357 is an act relating to the Office of Racial Equity, and it proposes to move the Office of Racial Equity out of the executive branch and as a standalone and fully independent office. It was submitted as a short form bill, and again, it's currently not in a committee. H361, which is an act relating to municipal and regional civilian oversight of law enforcement, which establishes community policing oversight boards that assist in training creation for law enforcement agencies, and also conducts investigations for law enforcement. And this is also not in committee, but related to one of, I believe, the RDAP's recommendations a few years ago related to community policing. H379 is an act related to second look sentencing. So it attempts to provide a process for folks to address their sentences if they meet certain requirements after serving 15 years of their sentences. This was one that was discussed. I believe the Defender General's office gave testimony on this, as well as Judge Zone. Again, this was near the end of 2025. There was no standards for eligibility, and there were also inconsistencies that they added with the current process that we have for taking a look at sentence recalculation. And it's sitting in House Corrections, and it might move to a miscellaneous corrections bill based on some current committee discussion, but they haven't picked it up formally yet. And then H382 is an act relating to data collection in the criminal justice system. It updates various points of data collection across the criminal legal landscape to include departments like the Department of Corrections. It also includes the judiciary and other components of our criminal legal landscape. I did note that some of the points of interest in this bill do already exist and are captured in some data systems that we already have. It is being endorsed by the RJSAC, but it's also not in committee at this time. So this looks like a lot, I apologize. But these are some criminal legal bills to watch so far in 2026. So on the left, we have the Senate bills. Also, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to tell me to stop talking. I'm happy to stop talking at any time. So on the left, we have Senate bills. So we have S128, S178, S208, and S209, with the last three are the ones that Susanna just mentioned. And then on the right, we have the House bills. We have H32, H294, H380, H409, H410, H549, and H559. So S128 is an act eliminating certain exemptions from the minimum wage and overtime, but it also includes inmates, which is why it's included in this list. It's to ensure that inmates receive minimum wage for the work that they're performing. It's currently in Senate Housing in General. There's a component to this that may be similar in a corrections miscellaneous bill. I believe, again, some of the things that did not get picked up in House Corrections and Institutions last year will likely resurface in a miscellaneous bill, according to some committee discussion that's already happened this year. So S178 is an act relating to speedy trial procedures in criminal cases. Technically, this is something that already does exist in Vermont, which is based on, from my understanding, Court Rule 48. It borrows a lot of procedures from the Massachusetts Court Rule 36, basically some of the processes that they're trying to implement and the timeframes. This bill is currently being discussed in Senate Judiciary, and this week there's testimony coming up from the ACLU of Vermont. And so far, they've heard testimony on this bill from the state's attorneys and sheriff's office, the judiciary, and the Defender General's office. And then S208 is an act relating to standards for law enforcement identification. It requires law enforcement officers to identify themselves in various methodologies. So announcing themselves, making sure their badge and their name is visible on their uniforms, things like that. I just noticed that I left off a parentheses. That's good. It also prohibits face coverings with some exceptions. I will say the exceptions list is very long. It's currently in the Senate Judiciary, and there's upcoming testimony this week from the ACLU of Vermont. We are recommending that the committee also hear from the Vermont Criminal Justice Council because they are named as one of the subjects in the bill language.
Laura, we are testifying on that tomorrow.
Oh, great. Okay. I guess I didn't refresh the schedule, so that's good to know.
No, I don't know that it's on there, but we will be testifying in the morning on this.
Awesome. Okay. Cool. That's great. So upcoming testimony from VCJC then and the ACLU of Vermont this week. And then we have S209, which is an act relating to prohibiting civil arrest in sensitive locations. So this adds to the list of what we consider sensitive locations where civil arrests cannot take place. So that includes government buildings, schools, community-based or emergency shelters, healthcare facilities, and in committee discussion, they talked about potentially and likely adding more sensitive locations to the list. So it's currently in Senate Judiciary, and then there's upcoming testimony from the ACLU. Are there any questions before I move to the House? Okay. So the House bills to kind of pay attention to. So we have H32, an act relating to treatment for opioid use disorder or OUD in correctional facilities. So this recently House Corrections and Institutions had WellPath, the WellPath doctor come and testify that WellPath is the private contractor health provider for our correctional facilities. And I do believe they will be taking this back up. It's essentially to provide medication for incarcerated individuals who have OUD, and then adding a data reporting requirement and data collection needs to that. There's a lot of equity concerns for this bill because it was something that we flagged last year was language inconsistency and data implications. There was also a lot of conversation regarding the detainee population and how with, undetermined release dates for various folks, how that could be operationalized as well. Again, they'll be revisiting this bill based on committee discussion. Similarly, with H294, an act relating to commissary and telecommunication prices in state correctional facilities and fair compensation for incarcerated labor. So that's the piece that's tied to that S218 bill. So this requires DOC to review their private contracts for commissary and communications. Most of the services in our correctional facilities are through private contracts. It also updates the telecommunications to have no fees so that it's free for incarcerated individuals to use telecommunications. And again, they're revisiting this and it might become part of a miscellaneous corrections bill. Next, we have H380, an act relating to creating a felony penalty for a violation of condition of release and to staff pretrial supervision. This creates the pretrial supervision, 12 positions for pretrial supervision officers and an administrative position to administer the pretrial supervision program. It increases penalties for violations of conditions of release from 2 years up to 3 years and a $5,000 fine. And this is currently in House Corrections at this time. H409, and I saw that Rep. Arsenal was here, so if she has any comments after I'm done, please feel free, is an act relating to the procedures for bail revocation. So essentially some technical changes. It changes the expungement language to sealing and adds in process to appeal revocation denials. It was voted out of House Judiciary on the 7th, so I think literally the second day of session. And we'll see if Senate Judiciary picks this up and it will be move forward. There wasn't any testimony on this bill. I do think it kind of was introduced at the end of session last year. And then based on the legislative website, there was a third reading of the bill to both chambers. Then We have H410, an act relating to the calculation of recidivism and other related criminology measures. So this essentially redefines how Vermont classifies recidivism and how to calculate recidivism rates. There were a lot of conversations also in committee regarding desistance, some equity concerns, and this being actually brought up by the Defender General's office, is the various classes of recidivists have been created. So there may be unintended consequences there, depending on how we're talking about calculation and these different population groups. So far, the committee has heard testimony from the governor's office, from the state's attorneys and sheriffs, from the crime research group, and the Defender General's office. And there's likely going to be a new version from Ledge Council the week of the 19th. It's not on the schedule for this week. Then we have H549, an act relating to eligibility of detainees to obtain state-issued non-driver identification cards. So this expands the non-driver state issue ID program to detainees. Currently, if you are an incarcerated individual being prepared for reentry, you have this privilege, or this is something that you can do. It is in House Corrections and Institutions, but there has not been any testimony yet to my knowledge, but there has been some committee discussion. I imagine that they will likely hear from the DOC and also potentially the DMV, because that is the agreement that the department currently has for the incarcerated and sentenced population. And then lastly, we have H559, which is an act relating to the parole board. So it changes the number of individuals on the parole board, clarifies term limits, and adds mandatory training components. Something that we noted is that it could expand to include new types of parole for those currently in the custody of DOC. One example would be geriatric parole. That's not something that we have here in Vermont, but 12% of our incarcerated population are considered geriatric. So currently this is in House Corrections and Institutions. There's upcoming testimony from the parole board, and then there's already been testimony from the parole board and the Attorney General's office. And that's it. Does anybody have any questions?
Wow, that's a lot and great work. And I just want to say that I really appreciate the presentation and the way that it's laid out. It's very accessible for me at least, and I love that. So thank you for all the work that you put into this. I I wasn't quick enough to grab what number it is, but it was H3 something. It was on that slide, and I think it was the third column of the ones with the 4. I don't know if you could bring that back up and just to explain that one a little bit more. All the rest I either sort of was familiar with or heard or understood or whatever, but I was, yeah, the H380, I think it was, that I'm reading. Can you just talk a little more about it or whatever? I didn't quite understand that.
Yeah, so I will say I'm not as familiar with this one, but because it creates additional penalties if somebody violates a condition of release. Obviously, we know that if you violate your condition of release, it's likely that you are going to be reincarcerated. So also, if Derek is still on, maybe you know a little bit more about. So from my understanding, pretrial supervision is happening as a pilot program right now. And the Department of Corrections is allocating some of their current resources to doing a pretrial component before people are being sentenced. So this would officially create this pretrial supervision program and allocate staffing and resources to that, as well as increasing the penalties if you were a person in that program, if you were to violate while in the program. And I don't know if that's helpful, but that's the understanding that I have, is basically it's solidifying, and maybe that's not the right word, the program that's in the pilot right now, and then also just increases the penalties if you were to violate a condition of your release.
And those penalties, though, wanting, it says creating a felony penalty. So it's specifically a felony, whereas was it not a felony before? Was there not a penalty at all? So, I mean, maybe we're not supposed to go into the nuance of this and we can do that at another time. But I just want to say that if now is not the appropriate time for this, to make a note or put a pin in an H380, and if we can return back to this as a team just a little bit, or maybe even email me some more information. I'm just having a little bit of trouble still understanding that, but I recognize that our time is almost up, so I want to be able to allow other questions to be answered and had.
Yeah, I can definitely get more information for you, but quickly, I think I don't know if it changes it from being a misdemeanor to a felony. I'm not really sure on that part, but from my understanding of the bill and how the bill is written, it basically changes, if you were to violate, it changes the penalty from being a 2-year incarcerative sentence to a 3-year sentence or a $5,000 fine. So I'm not sure about the first part of your question, but that is that's the other piece that changes, is just that you could be incarcerated for longer if you were to violate. But I'd have to look into the other piece.
So I just want to reflect that I think what I heard, it could be also a $5,000 fine. It sounds like these people are already incarcerated. So if that's the case, that's dumb. And I just thought I'd put that out there.
I
I
appreciate
don't
it.
make no money trying to get money out of somebody. If that's what we're talking about, these people are already incarcerated. That don't make no sense, but that's not what we're here for right now.
I'm seeing that Derek came off mute. You might have something to add here. The representative has her hand up, and then we have a member of the public who would also like to make public comment. So perhaps we can wrap just to make sure that we have time to get to them afterward.
Yeah, I'll pass. I don't have anything super important to add, but just when Laura flagged if I was here, I was just going to say yeah, and I think we've moved beyond specific pilot to statewide implementation, but without maybe the designated officer role.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Wilson.
Maya. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to share a little bit more about H409, to say that it passed today on third reading. We had to make one small change to it before it passed because the title of the bill didn't accurately reflect what the bill was doing. So we changed, that was an amendment before third reading, just to change the title. Because the title didn't say anything about bail revocation, it just said bail procedure. So we changed that. And the story behind this bill is that it was part of the miscellaneous judiciary bill last session in 2025, and Senate Judiciary just took it out because they felt like they didn't have enough time to really vet it. And so since we had House Judiciary had taken testimony on it and added it into the miscellaneous bill, we determined that we would just take it up at the start of this session 26 to send it back to Senate Judiciary so that they would have the time to properly vet it. So that's why we didn't hear a lot of testimony this session, because we heard testimony last session from the Defender General's Office, DPS, Department of Public Safety, and Department of State's Attorneys and Sheriffs, and passed it essentially by adding it to the miscellaneous judiciary bill. So that's the sort of backstory with that one. And then I was just going to make a note that the bills that are listed as not in committee, they are in a committee, because on first reading is just when a bill gets assigned to a committee. So if you look it up by bill number or whatever, you can see which committee it's assigned to, in case that's of interest. But I think, Laura, I think your point is that there's been no testimony, hasn't been taken, what we call taken off the wall hasn't been taken up yet, but it has been assigned. They have been assigned to committees.
Thank you. Yes, and that is exactly what I meant, is that we have not heard from stakeholder groups or from committee members regarding these bills. And I think most of the bills that I mentioned are in your committee, right?
Yep, probably. I'd have to look at the each one on the General Assembly website or look at our wall. But yeah, I think a lot of those are in our committee. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you both. So if this is useful to this group, then we can continue to do this at our meetings. We can share these materials with you, even though they tend to become stale pretty quickly after they're delivered. So we can talk more about that going forward. I'm going to thank our members in advance for their willingness to stay on for as long as it takes for us to hear from our members of the public. And I'm going to invite anybody who's not a member of the panel who would like to address the panel. Please feel free to do so. You can either come off mute and speak, or if you prefer to do so in the chat, we'll be monitoring the And Bobby, whenever you're ready, I know you said you wanted to share some.
Hi, yes. I just want to say thank you to everyone that's on this panel. It's very interesting listening to everyone talk. That means a lot that we have great people here in Vermont that are fighting for justice for the injustice. I just want to talk about my experiences here in Vermont as a citizen now here, that it has been very painful to deal with the injustices that I've been dealing with from law enforcement. Yes, about 2 days ago, it was a modern day hate crime that I was a part of in Berlin. I was just shopping online. I picked up my order. The worker at the Walmart threw her ID at me, called me the N-word, and then physically assaulted me. She was able to frame up with her coworkers the truth of what took place. The officer that showed up, he automatically agreed with them. After you see my finger here, it's totally disfigured from the assault by the woman that attacked me. There's no justice there. I've been trying to get help regarding the situation. There's no help. I was a little bit upset. The officer ended up arresting me for disorderly conduct. I mean, I don't know anyone that gets attacked that want to be screaming for help. In the hands of as being a 6'5" African American male, I'm not going to attack no female. So I'm useless. I can't do nothing. I can't defend myself, but I'm still a victim of being arrested. And the part of being arrested when you're a working class citizen that works with people of special needs and kids and people dealing with addiction, it prevents you from work because now you have a target on your back due to bias policing. And this is something that I'm dealing with here in Vermont. Since I've came here, I'm not sure if law enforcement thinks I'm someone that they've been watching for a very long time. I have no clue, but I'm illegally being monitored everywhere I go. Okay, it's just lies, and it's traumatizing. As someone that graduated college that has 2 degrees, has no criminal record, I don't know. As of right now, I think I am the only one in Vermont that currently that has been dealing with this. That's only been here 5 months. It's just traumatizing. It's sickening, and if anyone on this panel hears my cry for help that would like to help me somehow, I'm willing to sit down, come to your office. This is very traumatizing and it's bothering me. It's causing damage to me. It's damaging my reputation. And it's just not fair. To be called the N-word, ID thrown at you, the coworker, the store employee just makes up a story. The police officer sides with the story. That's a modern day frame. And this is what happens to people of color all day, every day, doesn't matter where you are. People of color is always put down, always lied on, and are always victims. And no one hears our cry. It's a systemic racism issue. My cousin was brutally murdered by NYPD, so it's a long history of dealing with injustices in my family. And it's just amazing, to be able to sit in this panel to see that people are fighting for injustices. but I'm a victim of it. And we need more people like you guys that's willing to help and willing to speak out about the disparity in policing and bias policing. You know, the odd situation about this is my mom is retired law enforcement in Long Island. She retired a Suffolk County police officer. So it's not that I hate the police. It's just that I don't understand why they keep harassing me. Why do they keep bothering me? What do they want from me? I've never done anything to them. I'm not even from Vermont. They harassed my family in New York. Now it's trickling down and harassing me here in Vermont. What else? How much longer could I deal with this pain? I don't know how much longer I can go. If anyone in this panel can help me, it'd be really great. Thank you.
Rebecca.
Mr. Smith, this is Rebecca Turner from, thank you for coming tonight and sharing. I'll put my office's phone number in the chat, and I encourage you to feel free to reach out to me. I'm at the Office of the Defender General.
Lisa.
Hi, Mr. Smith. My name's Lisa Ryan. I'm the Community Inclusion Director at the Vermont Criminal Justice Council, which oversees the Vermont Police Academy. We're responsible for all of the training and certification for all law enforcement in Vermont. I put my name and contact information in the chat. If you could please reach out to me shortly, I'd love to have a deeper conversation with you.
Hey, Mr. Smith, this is Sheila. I put information in the chat too. It sounds like you might be up north, but regardless, we have both virtual and sometimes people like to travel. If you're looking for community, want to hang with some of your peoples and in intentional community and find out not only things of joy that we're doing, but things of organizing and building movements, you can feel free to reach out to us for some more community if you like.
Another board that I sit on, we talk a lot about moments of transparent facilitation. And if I'm offering a moment of transparent facilitation, it's really difficult to sit with what we just heard. Bobby, you are definitely experiencing pain, and from what you described, it deserves and demands to be addressed. And so I really hope that you will take up our panel members' invitation to reach out to them. Lisa at the Criminal Justice Council, Rebecca at the Defender General's office. I don't know what law enforcement agency was involved, but the state also has a fair and impartial policing unit. The Attorney General's office may have some resources. There's a civil rights unit there, and there's also a human rights commission at the state level. If it is helpful to you, you can privately chat me or Todd here, and we can package all of that and give it to you in an email, so you don't have to go digging through chats and links.
I would like to say thank you to everyone that has reached out on my behalf. That means a lot. I am going to email you all because I need help. And I really do appreciate that. And, you know, it's a lot to deal with. Some people may never understand my story, but I came to Vermont to help. One of the things that I'm doing right now is becoming an SLP, which is a shared living provider, which I'm going to house people that are homeless. So there was a plan when coming here, and I just got to try to move forward. But I just keep finding myself in these situations that are not truthful, and that it's biased, and it's causing me to lose sleep, lose hair. So I will reach out to everyone. And Sheila, I'm definitely going to take you up on that, because I'm here in Northfield right now. One of the biggest things is when you're not from here, you don't know where to go. So it creates a burden on you. And then when you have people who are in power, who are just making up stories regarding you and lying and trying to bring you down, it becomes too much to deal with at some point. But I know that, God gives the toughest battles to those that can handle it. And I believe this is just another obstacle. And I think I will get through it. But it's painful to be falsely accused of things that you didn't do, being called the N-word, and then get arrested for something that you didn't do, and then they post you all over social media. Your clients see your name on Facebook. It's ridiculous. This reminds me of something that out of a movie. They post your name, your date of birth, everything on social media, but something's not even true, and then everyone's sharing it. I mean, there's only 2% of African Americans in Vermont. And my job that I do, I'm only 1%. So I have to go to work tomorrow and have to explain myself to people. What's going on? That's not a way to live. Based off something that's not even true. A made up story. Only if you guys understood how I feel right now.
Bobby, I also want to express gratitude to you for sitting through this very long meeting where we spent a lot of time talking about theory and bills and things that may not actually come to pass when you're experiencing real world things like this. So we did capture your email, and we're going to package all of the contacts and any other ideas for you and send that your way. And please do feel welcome to remain in touch with each of our offices.
Thank you.
And to return to a future meeting if you find it useful. Members of the panel, I'm grateful for you remaining on the line. And I'm going to quickly run through the action items we discussed at this meeting so that we can close. So we did agree to submit the thing. So Todd is going to be on point with submitting the thing. We also said that we would table a conversation around planning for next time. So I'll put Todd to tee up that discussion. I will also be on standby to join discussion with the legislature, and we'll invite anybody who would like to join me, in particular our community members, once we understand the logistical details. We are going to come back with November minutes at the next meeting, I believe. What else did we say we would do?
Follow up on the legislative proposal. Did you say, I couldn't quite hear the first part of what you said, but the rule versus legislation.
Oh, yeah, an important one. Thank you. Is there anything else? Oh, sorry.
Did we decide that we are going to try to elect a chair at the next meeting?
Okay.
My son just overheard me downstairs and turned to his sister and said, "Did Dad just say we're going to try the electric chair?" So I'll disavow him of that misunderstanding.
If we're gonna elect a chair, could we also talk about like an executive committee, which we've discussed before?
I think this feels right to be paired with our future planning conversation.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Is there anything else that must be said that has not been said before we close? All right. Remember to sleep, remember to listen to music, remember to dream, remember to be an agitator, and we'll see you on the next step.